Welcome to IT Reality. I'm your host, HTownVinny.
And I'm Richard Kenyan.
And I'm Nathan Bennett.
With over 4 decades of combined IT operational experience.
We may have an opinion.
Or not.
And now on with the show.
Let's go!
All right there, Richard. Settle down now. I know we have a great guest with us tonight, but you need to contain your excitement now, friend. Well, you know, we try to do new things, and sometimes it don't work. But, hey, we figured out we improvise on the fly. Mr. Fort Worth guy, how you doing over there?
Well, what do I always say, Vince? It's a beautiful day in Texas. Snowpocalypse 2.0 is on its way, and it will be here on Wednesday night, Thursday morning. Everyone's saying it's not going to be that bad. I don't think people understand, like, if the snowflake falls from the sky, like, everybody just immediately runs to the grocery store, buys all of the bread, milk, and everything else. And it's, you know, it is what it is. But it's, you know, again, if you accept it for the fact that it is what it is, then you accept that you can do what you can do. Let's move on. Attitude and kill it. Let's go.
That's quite the intro for Nathan. I do believe that's a first for his definition of snowpocalypse and how Fort Worthians treat snow. But in any case, listeners, we have covered in the past the topic of content creation. I do believe that was with Dan from Gears and Gadgets on YouTube. But with us tonight, we have another guest who is very familiar with the content creation game. And that is going to be the topic tonight. We don't have a outline for tonight. We are going to kind of play it by ear. So, Mr. Guest, I hope you're prepared to share your wisdom and your nuggets and your beneficial tidbits for our listeners. Before we go through and do that, though, it would be helpful if we, A, give our listeners your name, and then B, you introduce yourself and tell them who you are, what do you do for a living, why should they trust you as an expert in the content creation game?
That's a really good way to set that up. Hi, guys. My name's Nick Howell. I am also known online as DataCenterDude, and I've been doing content creation stuff for about 15 years now. It's been a fun ride. So my day job, what I do is I'm the global field CTO for all public cloud services at NetApp. If you know who NetApp is, hopefully. But really, that's not what we're here to talk about today. It's more about what can we do to talk about content creation. And this goes for me all the way back to things like GeoCities and Hot Dog Express. If those are some words you're old enough to remember.
Angel Fire.
And then we got MySpace, and we could customize our top friends. So there's all kinds of stuff that, and you know, little bullet list. I've been podcasting for over 10 years. I started a podcast network and, you know, summarily shut it down last year because reasons. I ended a almost 5-year running wrestling show last year after building a pretty awesome fan base, just because I figured out that it was time to focus on one thing and not try to do 27 different projects like my ADHD brain wants me to do. So that's really what it's been a bit of a journey. It's been bumpy, but rewarding, hella rewarding. So hi, thanks for having me, guys.
That is quite a list. But I laugh that you say you build up these sources of great content and shut them down, and then you go and build up Orbital Jigsaw.
That was Orbital Jigsaw.
It's certainly not shut down that I could tell.
Try to go to the website. Good luck.
Oh, well, I wasn't going to go there.
I still own the domain name. There are still plans to do stuff with it. But at the end of the day, we're still trying to figure that out. It was originally set up I created Orbital Jigsaw back in 2014, frankly, as a tax shelter, if you think about it in that respects, for content that I was creating. And what I mean by tax shelter is not some crooked scheme. I mean, there were things that I was doing above and beyond my job in LA, like funding plays and being a producer. And those have expenses and they have liabilities. And you don't want to tie those to your individual self, right? So there's all kinds of stuff to do with that. But it was really born out of, I was trying to find a cool combination of words that all the social handles were available and the domain was available. You wouldn't believe how hard of a game that is.
Oh, I think
So-
some of us would.
The if we go back, wind the clocks that far back, I hadn't even really started a podcast for Orbital Jigsaw yet. The first one I ever did was for NetApp. I started the NetApp Communities podcast back in 2012, I think it was. It was one of our first episodes, end of 2012 when they first went up. And that was simply born out of, we were having these internal calls where we were having product managers come on and engineers come on and teach our internal field how to do stuff and give roadmap updates and demos and talk about features and value props so that the field could then go out and sell the products. And me being the guy in the back of the room just kind of raised my hand and went, hey, any reason we're not sharing this publicly? This is good information for people to know. And everybody kind of looked around and like, actually, no, there's not. Do you know how to do that? I was like, I don't know. And at the time, the only real tech podcast that was going on was John Troyer doing the VMware Communities podcast. So I basically, that terrible talk shoe program that recorded live, it even sounded like John. It was a running joke for a couple of years.
It sounds like crap.
Yeah, it's dial-in phones, and it just sounds awful. But I can't tell you guys, I tuned into that VMware podcast every week. I dialed in live. I got to talk on the show. I had opinions and waited. It was amazing at the time. But the sound quality was horrible. So I convinced a couple of people. Yeah. I convinced a couple of people to let me have $1,000 budget, and I went and bought a mixer and a microphone and some, I think another laptop or something like that. I don't know. But that was the origin of it for me. Fast forward 10 years. I don't know how many thousands of podcasting episodes I've done. I've done professional voiceover training. I've taken power speaking courses and things like that because they all help. It's understanding the flow of things. And when you're talking, you change the intonation in your voice and it makes the story a little bit better and it keeps the listener engaged. That applies across, if you're got a PowerPoint on the screen and you're on a WebEx, if you're at a show and you're doing a presentation, if you're doing a podcast and people can't see you and they can't see emotion and emoting from your body, you need to reflect that in your voice. So I try to identify all of those things, and it basically comes down to authentic acting and being able to sort of control the flow of things and how you go about it. You can apply that to podcasting, to videos, to live streaming, to presenting. It applies everywhere. So
body language too. One of the things that we did at the Mugs Leaders Summit is we had a guy come up and do body language courses. He's like, you know, try to stand up and publicly speak with your arms crossed. It's damn near impossible. But if you open up your arms and start bringing the audience into what you're saying, your voice changes, your body language changes, the response to the audience changes. It's all of that same stuff that you're talking about that's been really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
If you were just publicly speaking, still take voiceover courses, take acting classes, take as much as you can to get comfortable on stage, and it changes everything.
The easiest lesson I ever learned was smile when you talk and listen to how different it sounds. Mind-blowing kind of stuff. Stupid little stuff you can fix like that. But yeah, that's not about being a content creator, but there are fundamentals like that will help you succeed at doing anything that you're doing. Because otherwise what you end up with is what most tech creators end up with, and they have a PowerPoint up on the screen and so now we're going to go over how we do a demo of SQL Server.
I'm already sleeping. Gone.
Yeah. That's what most enterprise tech content is, unfortunately, on YouTube. Is recorded people narrating voiceover over PowerPoints that they recorded with Camtasia and their MacBook Pro. And I have been on a mission myself for at least 3 years now to try to up that game, try to teach, try to pass knowledge in so many different ways, any way that I can think. And Orbital Jigsaw was originally supposed to kind of morph into part of that. Yes, it was hosting a podcast network of, I think we were up to 12 shows at one point with all kinds of different creators. And I was working with them on Do they need an LLC? How do they take on ads and sponsorships and things like that? And how can we SEO their content a little bit more so that it shows up, like behind the scenes kind of stuff? That's really what Orbital Jigsaw was originally supposed to be about. So because I learned all of those mistakes the hard way, and you never stop learning from your mistake. You never stop making mistakes is the way to say it.
That's a great point, because one of the things we like to ask people on this podcast, Nick, is what we call the tales from the front lines, which is you're going and you're doing the thing, you're creating the content, you're giving that presentation, what have you, and the proverbial you-know-what hits the fan. Well, you can't just stop doing whatever it is you're doing. You move forward, keep doing it, come back from it. So maybe that's a good place for you to give your tales from the front line and tell our listeners about a time when you were presentation, podcast, whatever, and everything broke. You weren't prepared. How'd you handle it?
I'm an over preparer, so maybe that's the difference. That's the leg up, and that's a lesson. Over prepare. Under promise and over deliver by over preparing is one of my big things. But I used to be a perfectionist when it came to editing, because I was scared and some imposter syndrome snuck in. So I would snip out every little every little breath of air, every little thing, and I would spend hours editing every single episode of a podcast. And at a certain point, I was like, nah, don't need to do that shit anymore.
Been there, done that.
So when recording some of my videos for friends, things like that, as I've been getting more and more comfortable, it's odd. I miss public speaking due to COVID very, very much. But when I started to replace it with video content, I got real nervous real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why until I started to do exactly what you just said. I was like, I recorded like a birthday message for somebody, and it took me an hour and a half to record 37 seconds.
Yeah.
When in real life, I would have just done it on a stage and introduced somebody and went, hey, happy birthday to whoever I was doing it for. An hour and a half for 37 seconds.
How many times have you given that same talk or speech or presentation, on a WebEx or something like that? When I say over prepare, I don't mean like you have to go study and you have to memorize your lines and all that stuff. No, that's not what I mean. I'm talking about run the content, run the talk, run the talk track. I have been giving the same presentation, I don't know how many hundreds of times at this point, with minor tweaks here and there per event that I go to for at least the last year. So when I walk in somewhere, I don't really even need the deck. It's the talk track, and the story of the presentation is automatic.
Nick, you've hit so many different topics that we could dig into. I guess that's why I'm being quiet, because I'm trying to figure out where do we start? So first of all, with the podcast creation and all of the audio video content creation that you have been doing, if you could single out one thing to tell people to do that are just starting out, what would you tell them?
I mean, I don't want to say the tropey just start, but that's kind of what it is. Because I can make 100 YouTube videos telling you how to make the perfect podcast, and you'll it up the first time. You'll mess it up. You will absolutely screw up, and you'll hate it, and you'll delete it, and you'll re-record it. But just start. The only way, forget everything you watch on YouTube that's not a technical how-to of how to wire up your interface and all that stuff, because you need to learn how to do all of that stuff. And working with things like Reaper or DaVinci or any of these other editing, like, you're going to need to learn how to do that stuff. There's some baggage that comes along with this life. I never wanted to be an audio engineer. If you're, Windows, exactly. If you're on Mac, you're going to want to learn Logic and Final Cut, right? If you're on Linux, they also have versions of Reaper and DaVinci that run on Linux. So there's stuff out there for everybody. You're going to need to learn whatever you're comfortable with. But the fundamentals of how they all work are exactly the same. But by going through those motions, you're never going to learn how or develop your own style if you don't just go out there and do it. So go out there and do it. Sit down with a buddy in the garage with a 12-pack of beers and just a couple of cheap $50 microphones and just start talking about stuff. Like, how many times have we stood on the balcony or on the deck or in the garage for hours and just talked about stuff, right? Do the exact same thing, because the more the audience member feels like they're there having the conversation with you, that's when you begin to see real community and real listenership and viewership start to form. But you're never going to figure out how to make it that comfortable until you start. If you're not comfortable, your audience isn't going to be comfortable, I think would be the lesson. But just start. Just figure it out. You don't have to solve all the world's problems before you push record for the first time. Figure them out as you go.
That's so funny that you answer that question that way, Nick, because several of the things you said, I was sitting here listening going, wait a second, that's how ITR got started. Wait a second. I was looking for a podcast about IT stuff that was not biased because it was financially backed by a specific organization. Couldn't find it and decided, damn it, I'm going to do it myself. Oh, wait, what did Nick just say? Are you listening?
Yeah.
So craziness.
Identifying gaps is a, doing a little bit of research, figuring out, and I like to have what I call man in the mirror conversations. And this is going to sound silly and it's going to sound stupid, but I will challenge everybody to go stand and stare at yourself in the mirror and talk to yourself, because you're the only one that's going to be able to be real with yourself, as real as that gets. And you really have to dig deep and ask what you want out of this. And the good news is, because that's half your business plan. That's half your strategy right there. What do you want out of this?
Yeah. I mean, like, so this goes through a number of self-help books and other autobiographical books. Got it. Nailed it. Such as like David Goggins, like Can't Hurt Me, right? He talks about the mirror, and he talks about putting your goals on Post-it notes and posting it to the mirror, so that when you go in the morning and brush your teeth, you see your goals there, and you see, more importantly, you see your goals next to yourself. And thus identifying, and I don't know if you want to call it imprinting the goals on the importance of, of yourself. I think all that stuff is really interesting. Let's say I'm kind of thinking about in terms of, starting these things. If I was going to start like this idea, like, would you say to those people, like, just doesn't matter what your idea that you have, it doesn't matter if you have, like, if there are other people doing the same thing, still just start? Or would you say try to find a niche?
Are you asking Vince or are you asking me?
I was asking you, Nick. You're the pro, man.
Okay. So subjective, and I'm going to give you the classic IT answer of it depends. Now, where people, and again, what do you want out of this? I'm going to repeat this as a theme throughout the show tonight because this matters, right? What do you want out of this? Do you want to be Insta famous and have 10,000 listeners and all of that stuff? Got bad news for you. That takes years and years to build that. In fact, of all of the content that I've ever created, I've never had a show that exceeded 10,000 per episode. I'll get into the 1,000 to 5,000 range pretty regularly on some of them after years of putting up episode and hundreds of episodes. But if you think you're going to show up and here's a stat for you. Most podcasts don't survive past 20 episodes.
Vince, what are we at?
80 something, maybe upwards of 90 at this moment.
Because you guys have realized what you want out of it. You understood your niche and your gap that you were filling, right? That, as you were just saying a minute ago, Vince, you're comfortable in your own skins to come out and have a conversation about topics that you consider yourselves strong at. So you have a niche. It's enterprise tech. That's your niche audience, the people that you're talking to, even though you're talking about different things. You can talk about video games, but the people that are going to listen to your show are most likely coming from that enterprise audience that we all know, that we all work around, right?
I always thought it was because Ariel wouldn't let us quit. I thought that was why we keep doing this.
That may be part of it, but go ahead, Nick.
Yes, that's always part of it. Whenever we do anything, it's always Ariel in the background going, "You better not stop ever."
If you want to monetize a project in any way, a niche is always better. because an engaged audience, usually a niche has a more engaged audience. And what do I mean by engaged? They're going to share your stuff. They're going to comment on your stuff. They're going to buy your swag. They're going to want to meet you when you run into an engaged niche audience. Financially, monetarily, is always the most rewarding. But if you want to try and broaden that scope a little bit, there are ways to do that. You can step out of that and have either multiple shows, or you can create more of a multi-topic type of platform. But the more you water it down and the more thinly you spread yourself and your content, the less, which was a very important lesson that I learned within the last 5 years, was I spread myself too thin and I spread my content way too thin, and it required a refocusing back down to me and what I was good at.
What do you mean?
So that was probably the big lesson I took away.
What did you mean by spreading yourself too thin? You want to explain that a little bit further?
Sure. I had a wrestling show, professional wrestling. Fun fact, Nick loves professional wrestling. It's a guilty pleasure. It has to do with growing up with a grandfather with one of those giant satellite dishes in the backyard, right? Don't throw the 4 up at me, because we'll throw down. 89 Ric Flair, the best ever. So sitting on his lap watching these pirate pay-per-views when he had this giant satellite dish and he would like dial it in, right? And you had to wait for it to turn and you would see it almost like the tracking scramble in, right? So it goes back. So I still tune in from time to time on professional wrestling. Had a show almost 5 years. I also had a TV and movies show, and I was running a network of shows with about 10 other creators about anything from true crime to sports to whatever, spread out all over the place. And then I was also doing tech stuff. I was doing tech consulting on the side, writing papers and ghostwriting content and things like that. And then I had the NetApp show back. I was all over the place. And the realization that I had that was very epiphany kind of stuff was I always associated DataCenterDude with NetApp. And wrongly. Like I'm admitting that I always, since it was created when I was employed by NetApp 10 years ago, I always associated it with NetApp. So when I parted ways with them for a short term there, I thought that brand, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes, kind of stayed with them. And I was very thankfully chin checked by someone who I trust and said, no, that's you. That's not NetApp. And it was this moment of clarity that I had where I just went, I had always wanted to go from audio only podcasting to live streaming and videos. And that was the vehicle to which I was able to take and do that. So back in 2019, I created the YouTube brand channel for DataCenterDude and set out on a grand plan to start doing live streaming stuff. So all throughout 2020, and then the pandemic happened and all hell broke loose.
And everybody's plans anywhere ever just went up in the air.
Yeah. Fortunately, I had started a small community around some of those live streams that Richard was a part of. Thank you, Richard, for being one of the OGs. And I had originally called it DataCenterDude's Stream Chat or something in Discord. And Jason Bennett
was just live stream. It was just DataCenterDude live stream. It wasn't anything special yet.
Something like that, right? And there were like 10 people, maybe 15 people in there, right? Just people that would watch my streams and a way for me to interact with the audience. And which is a very popular thing to do for individual solo creators today, is to have a Discord community around them and their project. It's fantastic. Epos Fox, Harris Heller, any of these people that I watch and patron myself, I'm in their Discord because I want to see what's going on with it. And then the communities become kind of self-sustaining, self-fit, and they take on a life of their own. And you just kind of have to sit back and watch it and let it evolve like some kind of science experiment. So with the pandemic coming in, it was really about how do I embrace the DataCenterDude brand, but also how do I build a community around that? Because I'm nowhere near a big enough consumer-oriented creator to do that kind of stuff. And I'm not a gamer. Well, I am a gamer, but I'm not live streaming video games. So all of the pandemic stuff that happened really was, how do we do in enterprise tech what they're doing in the consumer space, whether it's gaming or YouTube and that kind of thing. And I look at guys like Linus Tech Tips, Linus Sebastian. I look at how are they MKBHD, I can never remember which one it is. Those guys, MKBHD, yeah. And I looked at those brands and entities and what they did, and for the most part, it was reviewing iPhones, reviewing gear, cameras, lenses, lights, just consumer electronics, right? And I had this moment where I went, why is nobody doing this in the enterprise space? Why is nobody? Why is there no YouTube channel that reviews storage arrays? You've got Brian over at Storage Review, and those guys do good work. But they're doing blogs still like it's 2008. So and they're very successful at it, right? And they do good work. But that's how they're monetizing their business. YouTube videos, live streams, all of this kind of stuff is the way it's going. And the consumer side of this has absolutely driven that.
So I think what you're saying, Nick, is actually really interesting because us in the VMware community have something to say. And what we always say, and it's kind of under the covers, and I'm saying this on a podcast, which, we'll see how this goes. But, VMware support sucks. And it's something that we all kind of have to deal with because we all have to have that last, how do I put it? That last ditch effort of, I can't figure this out. So I'm going to sign an enterprise agreement with VMware so I can get support, so I can, put in a ticket that will in 3 days, hopefully give me someone that will help. But
this podcast
what you
is
just
not
said,
on my vExpert application, by the way. This is Nathan's opinion.
Yeah. This is all me, guys. But here is the thing. And one of the reasons why I love the VMware community is because there is always someone on Twitter. There is always someone on, like you're mentioning, being a part of a Discord. There is always someone in all of these different communities that is more than willing to help you. VMTN is a great community also. But there's always someone willing to help you fix whatever is going on. And they're usually a lot faster. And I always kind of think of it in this way, and this is where we'll spin this back around. VMware support doesn't actually suck. The community is just better than what other communities are. And so I think that's
why.
Why is that?
Just do that. Like, break that down for me. Why is what's important there?
Why? So
it's organized. It's relatively organized across multiple social media platforms. You've got the Twitter vCommunity hashtag and vExpert if you really want to bring in some of the evangelists. You've got vMug itself, which is the VMware user group, which has been around since about 2006, give or take. And you've got what Nathan said, the VMTN, which is the official technical forums on VMware's website.
Yep.
And you can toss in the Reddit subreddit, /r VMware.
But I want to connect it to something that you said, Nick. Somebody's not doing this. The community is so great because we found that, hey, this is something that needs to exist. This is something that needs to grow. And then voices continue to find I refer to it as their tribe, and they continue to join that voice and grow louder and louder to the point where now if you are a VMware folk, person, whatever, and you go on tech Twitter, and you look around, you can't help but eventually just kind of poke some VMware guy that understands one thing, guy or girl, whatever. And then it's just, that's the community that has grown.
Yeah.
So it all comes back to something that you said which was, the content that you're going to create and the importance around it. And how that kind of grows into, what you have. And I feel like I've been talking for a long period of time, and normally my role is just to ask questions here, but I mean, like, what do you think, Nick? Am I way off base here? Is this like pretty close to correct?
It's pretty close. Yeah. And it's also kind of dated. So let me quantify that.
Oh, you calling me old? Oh.
No, I'm calling the way that communities are built in general in the enterprise space today are dated. Let me quantify that. Hot take. I think outside of Google SEO discovery, blogging is mostly dead. There are websites you can go to have AI write articles for you. I've entertained doing the experiment myself just to see how it goes and measure it and maybe make a video on it. So sneak peek for anybody.
It does good. Make a video on it, but it does good.
All right. Yeah. So I'm gonna break all of that. I want to see what's going. But in general, I think Dooley and I even talked about it at VMworld at the end of 2020, a little over a year ago. We had a big conversation about it. That's on my YouTube channel too. Is blogging dead? Two of us OG bloggers, right? Talking about is blogging dead, and he made some really good points about how you're not going to be able to find anything in a hour of podcast audio that you could simply find on Google for a problem. And I'm just like, it's a very niche problem. I think blogging's dead. I think social media is very polarized right now. And if I only get on Twitter once a day, that's too much, if I'm being blunt. I don't like it like I used to like it. For all of the reasons, Nathan, that you just rattled off, it's hard to get on there and try to find somebody or not be able to find somebody that bump into a VMware guy. Man, we must have different timelines, because I get on there and it's toxic, and I'm not a fan. Yeah, I'm not a fan of what's going on with social media in any way right now.
I'm also very generous with the mute button. Very generous.
I just don't have that kind of free time.
Yeah, it changes my timeline. And I get that. I absolutely get that. But this is something that I will say, because I actually think that you're incorrect. And so this will be a fun podcast. And so I don't think that blogging is necessarily dead. And this is why. If I am specifically in VMware and specifically in enterprise grade blogging, if I am looking for something specifically to try to fix a particular issue, SEO is what's going to bring that top to whatever it is that I'm going to look for. It's very difficult to find a podcast specifically to that particular issue, but I may find a blog about that,
or a YouTube video,
or a YouTube video. I see where you're going.
That's where I was going.
So for our listeners, before we get too far down this, please define SEO.
Oh, God, search engine optimization.
That's what I thought, but I want to make sure that the rest of our audience is aware of that.
Right? No, and every word. So when you go to Google, this is the easiest example. You go to Google and say, how do I set up a V-distributed switch with ESXi 7? Whatever you're typing there, you're going to get a set of search results. Well, I just so happen to have a video on my YouTube channel that talks about configuring V-distributed switches. And in the title of said video, I've put in V-distributed switch in the ESX version, and in the tags of that video, I've put those in as tags. So you can go to Google all you want, but I guarantee you some of the first search results that you're going to see 8 times out of 10 are YouTube videos instead of links to blog posts, right? It varies. It's subjective, sure. But I'm looking at this as, can I find a 3-minute YouTube video that I can put over on a side monitor and listen to while I am troubleshooting here on screen, rather than having to Control-F keyword search through a blog article that may or may not be helpful or may not actually fix the problem. I think YouTube has mostly replaced technical how-to blogging, is what I was getting.
I see your point. And to a degree, I kind of agree. But to another degree, if I'm an enterprise operative, time is the biggest resource that I do not have. Mm-hmm. And so I want to be able to find the answer as fast as possible. And so I can go through multiple blogs with that exact solution that you just brought up, which was Control-F, and try to find the answer to the blog instead of scrubbing through YouTube, which, by the way, some YouTubers are very good at putting chapters within their YouTube video so that I know what they're going to talk about during that time, and some are not. So if I'm looking for that answer and it's just a big, long red line of 24 minutes, guess what? I'm moving on. And
you know who's amazing at that I want to give a shout out to real quick is Network Chuck. If you're not subscribed to Network Chuck's channel, he's amazing. He's a lot of fun to watch. He makes 30-minute videos, sometimes 45-minute videos, but he chapters the hell out of them. And frankly, each one of those chapters could be its own video most of the times. But,
so let me ask you this. No, I was about to pass it over to you with this question. Do you think that's just a a sign of the times of the culture that we live in nowadays? Because if I Google anything, regardless of if it's, vSphere distributive switch, golf clubs, what's wrong with my marriage, a video is going to pop up. That's just like what pops up on your Google search. So is this really that blogging is just a medium that is no longer treasured in the SEO?
It's treasured in SEO or for SEO. And one of my biggest mistakes, since we're talking about content creation, that I didn't do over the last 2 years was keeping DataCenterDude.com up to date with all of the videos that I was creating. And I did an exercise last week where I literally went through all of my videos over the course of the last year, copied the script that I used to make the video, pasted it in, fashioned it in, took some of the video scripty stuff out of it, made sure I did an SEO friendly title, tagged it properly, and put it up as a blog post with an embed at the very top of the YouTube video that I made.
And speaking of SEO, I immediately saw his work, Nick's work, reflected in my YouTube timeline, which is very, very curated. So you're talking about proper SEO stuff. You're talking about proper titles. You're talking about proper tags, proper website linking back to your YouTube site. It immediately, when he made that change, like within 24 hours, my YouTube feed on my phone is cars, cartoons, and some education stuff for technology, and then all the enterprise tech that I do. His channel started appearing, going, "Hey, this is a recommended video. Would you like to watch this?" Absolutely, click. And it wasn't the newest video he had on his channel. It was the past videos that he had linked up to his website, fixing the mistake he just made. Instant 24-hour up on my timeline. Just like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let me toss this a different way, and I'm throwing you curveballs, Nick, because I want you to try to fill this out really. Because when we're talking about content creation, I always try to think about how to get people into this, because the more content as a community, as a world, as human freaking beings that we get out there and sharing knowledge. Did the Renaissance not teach us anything about how sharing knowledge can actually like motivate us to grow as a, species? But anyway,
well, that's just your opinion, man.
I know, man. I know.
We might have to bring Nathan in here.
Real free.
This is species talk here. We're talking about
I'm
enterprise
real
tech
free
and blogging.
with my thoughts. But when we're talking about content creation and people getting started, it's very difficult to jump into something such as YouTube. It's more easy for them to jump into something like a blog, even though that comes with sometimes like $100, $125 cost. If you're looking at WordPress, maybe cheaper going somewhere else, whatever. I haven't looked at the numbers, but if they're looking at jumping into YouTube, do you think it's possible for someone to get into it with a quote unquote budget, solution?
Yes. Absolutely. First of all, you should have a site. You should have some kind of central thing that is not a property that someone can rug pull you out from under. So first and foremost, have your content, have it on your property, but share it elsewhere. You're not asking, your question is not incorrect in what your line of thinking there. You're thinking about it in 2010 ways, though. Let me clarify this. And this isn't a knock. This is so common. If you take a piece of content, the content distribution strategy now has completely changed. 10 years ago, we all wrote blog posts. We wanted people to subscribe to our RS feeds in their Feedly or Google Reader. We tweeted about said blog post and the way that so that it would show up on people's timelines, and we wanted to grow our followership on social media so that we posted links to our blog posts. Now, the whole discovery game has changed. Now you're making short form content, 60 seconds or less, that drives it's good old click funnels. You're making short form content that drives people to your long form content. I don't care whether that's a blog post or a video or a combination of the two. If we're not, short form content 10 years ago was microblogging, Twitter, Tumblr, things like that. You would want people to read your next article, right? Things have evolved over the last decade to be all video. I mean, these things now, fun fact, probably 10 grand worth of cameras. He's
holding up an iPhone
sitting over there on the shelf.
These things are iPhones.
I was getting there. I've probably got about 10 grand worth of cameras and lenses and batteries and straps and all kinds of shit sitting over there on the shelf that I haven't touched in weeks, if not months. My iPhone 8 Plus that I'm holding in my hand right here, 5 years old, shoots both 4K 24 and 120 frames per second. The newer ones have all the ultra wide stuff too. So if you've got an iPhone 11 or beyond, congratulations, you've got literally one of the best cameras on the market for example, or Androids. A lot of Androids. I even looked at Androids as a potential replacement just to have as a camera. Second, keep this as a phone because it's not that big. The 8 Pluses were about the size of the normal iPhones now. But the new ones with the ultra wide cameras, does it even need a SIM card? I really just want to use it as a camera, right? So I can have one, maybe two of those for the same money that I would spend on a full frame sensor, A7S with lens package and all of that stuff. So at the end of the, plus you get so much more versatility. You can integrate it with iCloud. You can upload it to your footage. You can automate the ingest of your footage. And I can't put into words how awesome that is and how much of a headache that is if you're shooting on traditional cameras with SD cards. The management of SD cards alone as a video producer.
Well, you were also complaining about USB 2 upload speeds the other day from your phone, trying to get all your video off of it.
I figured that out. I figured all that out. Which is actually, I should write that down. That's actually a pretty good video. Yeah,
you should make a blog post on that.
Okay. I will. And I'll put my script and my video embed in there.
Nice. So, no. I really love this conversation because it's so pertinent to nowadays, because as the community changes, as we as a culture changes, content creation is more about getting your message out than the medium of how you get the message out. And so the last question that I have about, in terms of moving from blogging into, say you wanted to do like YouTube videos or something like that, is time. It seems like it's really easy nowadays to just write a blog, Grammarly the hell out of it, and then post it and say, here you go. I wrote this in like 30 minutes, right? You do a YouTube video, and I've heard, really, really smart people say that for every minute, it takes like an hour of editing. I mean, like, that just seems like an insane amount of time to have to spend in order to create something and put it out. Is that really a worry or problem, or is the fact that YouTube is so much more popular worth the effort?
So, Nick, before you answer that, let me jump in because it's a very relevant question. The first 2 seasons or first 2 years of IT Reality was just audio. We weren't even thinking about video. The video that we're seeing, we're all on camera talking to each other right now, was for our own benefit. We weren't even thinking about sharing it. But moving into this year, we wanted to start sharing video. And in the past, I could take an hour to an hour and a half or less, if that happened to be it, of audio of the three of us plus whomever happened to be talking to, and I could edit that down Thursday evening, get it prepped, get all the show notes in place, get it uploaded Thursday night with tweets going out Friday morning to let all of our followers know, hey, we released another one, and now we want to do video, and we recorded one episode earlier in January. I'm still not done editing it. Because there's so many aspects of, okay, I grabbed the video content, I grabbed the audio content, I threw it all into Final Cut, and I'm going through the timeline, I'm cutting things, tweaking things, moving things around. Oh yeah, now I need to go grab a link. It grows. So this isn't a hypothetical question that Nathan's asking, and I think Richard has something to add on here before you answer. So we're going to have this long.
Yeah, it's a big discussion roundtable topic of all of those.
Yeah. So Richard, what you have to add?
And to add into that, we have been trying to hit the 40-minute mark very unsuccessfully lately. However, what Vince just said is the content that we have is actually really, really good. We've been interviewing high-end people from different companies, yourself included, for different topics. And we are hitting the point where we're in depth in a conversation, and we're like 2 or 3 hours of content that is good, non-filler, non-boring content that I myself would listen to outside the podcast if I wasn't on it. Is there a sweet spot for the time, or is it just get as much content out regardless of how much there actually is? So like, do we shoot for 40-minute episodes? Do we shoot for an hour and a half episodes? Do we shoot for part 1, 2 episodes? Do we get guests on a list that says, here's your questions, here's what you're going to answer, 30 minutes, you're done, you're out. You've been on so many podcasts throughout your career and hosted so many. Help. Like,
so there's 3 parts to this thing, and I want to go back to what Nathan was talking about, which is the time and financial investment comparison between writing a blog post versus making a YouTube video. You're absolutely right that in the beginning, as you're finding your footing, it's a big leap to go from one to the other. And so current status, it's January 2022. I currently have an editor that edits my videos for me. I give some directorial notes, but that is a paid service because at a certain point, I've learned to shoot so well that I don't really need to be a part of the edit. It's all just punch up kind of stuff and adding effects and overlays and stuff. We're not actually editing the content itself, which I'll come back to in a second to your point, Richard. At a certain point, yes, it does become an issue of finance. There is some upfront investment involved in creating YouTube videos, in doing live streams. Luckily, I've gone through the ringer with just about all of those mistakes. And I've put together on, I think it's kit.co/Nick Howell. I've got kits there that you can go and look at. There's a less than $500 bundle that'll get you a microphone, a camera, all small audio interface and things like that. You've got the big streaming bundle. If you want to ball out and have all kinds of the good stuff, there's that on there as well. And there's some other stuff. It's one of the things I need to update soon because it's about a year old since I put all that together. But we did that live on stream. That's content, right? All of that stuff becomes content over time. And that's important to understand that everything that you do once you start doing that, and beard care. Yes, thank you for the reminder. I do have a beard care kit because I can't tell you how many times a day I get asked, oh, what do you put in your beard? So having all of that out there is an example of of what you can look at as far as spending goes when it gets into these different ventures, whether it's live streaming, playing video games, whether it's podcasting, whether it's writing blog posts. Now, to blog, I used to have to pay GoDaddy. So about 8 years ago, mine was pretty successful. I got a lot of traffic. I was getting 20,000 hits a day on DataCenterDude.com. Doesn't get anywhere near that anymore. But I was paying around $600 a year to have the kind of server caliber that could handle that kind of traffic load on a daily basis without spinny wheel happening. And I paid different developers to do enhancements and speed efficiency things. I paid somebody to go in and resize all my images and like all of that. I did all of that stuff with the idea that the end user experience and what I wanted out of it and would be ideal. You have to look at videos the same way. What I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at. I'm really good at writing content. I'm really good at working with cameras and microphones and audio, and I've learned a lot about lighting. I'm great at shooting. I can shoot stuff. I can talk through stuff. But man, if I sit down to edit, it looks awful. If you go watch my 2021 recap that I put up a couple of weeks ago on my YouTube channel, I edited that myself. It's awful. I hate it, but I got it up there.
I disagree.
Right? Thank you. I like the content. The edit itself is like amateur hour compared to some of the stuff that I can pay an editor $100 to do. And they turn around in 48 hours. And I don't have to deal with it. I shoot my stuff. I upload the footage. I add in some overlays and icons. And by the time you get to the third or fourth video with the same editor, they're like, yeah, you're good. Because they've got all that stuff preset for you. So, and I'm not doing anything special. I'm going out on Fiverr and I'm auditioning different editors, so to speak. So I went through about 3 to 4 different people and found somebody that I had a vibe with, and then basically did an 8 video subscription with them. And it's $100 per video once per week. And if you offload that, I've been able to shoot, like this week, I'm going to be able to shoot 4 videos. Why? Because I'm not editing. Because I'm not sitting in a booth staring at a screen for 4 hours per video at minimum, trying to half-ass amateur hour my way through it. Know what you're good at. Remember the man in the mirror conversations? I suck at editing. I know that. I admit that wholly. That's something I'm going to farm out. That is tenfold different to writing a blog post. It is definitely a graduation step to move from a blog. Your blog post becomes a script. And then you have to buy a $20 app to put it up on an iPad, and you need a $100 and $150 teleprompter to put it up, and you need a decent camera that can go through the teleprompter, and you need tripods that are strong enough to support all of it. And now you need an expensive overhead mic, not or a lapel mic or something like that. And you need a Tascam to record the audio if your camera won't do it native. All of this stuff comes in when you decide to commit that you're going to do this stuff. The beauty is you probably already have an iPhone that can shoot 4K, and you can go buy a little Rode microphone that I'm holding it up right now so the guys can see it, that plugs directly into the Lightning port for $60, I think it was, from Rode, the people that make some of the best microphones in the world, right? Shure has an equivalent, I think it's the MV88, if you want to spend a little bit more. The stuff is out there. The phone in your pocket for 99.9% of people is perfectly capable of shooting videos. Do you have a tripod with one of those little clamps on it that you can hook it to? Done.
As long as you have a steady hand. Or
No.
a steady...
No. You have tripods.
Are you
now.
holding your microphone right now, Vinny?
You've got wrist-mounted.
This isn't
containers.
TikTok.
Yeah, so
TikTok
you don't
turns out
hold
of
your
his
microphone when you're doing a podcast, and you certainly don't hold your camera when you're shooting a video, right? Now, there are ways to up-level. The point I'm trying to get at here is, yes, Nathan, to your point, there is a significant fiduciary investment that you, one, need to have some disposable income to support, and two, need to be okay with spending that, and 3 videos in being like, yeah, this isn't for me. Don't feel some kind of obligation, because you can turn right around and flip it on Facebook or eBay. Right? It's not a big deal. But if you try it and you find out it's not for you, one of my favorite phrases of all time is the fail fast mantra. Fail fast. If that didn't work, scrap it. Try it again. You didn't like that? Scrap it. Try it again. I don't know how many times I've done that. Somebody asked earlier why I've done so many things and shut them down, and does other things and shut them down, and it didn't work. Why waste any more time on it? Right.
So I really want to touch base on why I'm pushing this. And the reason for that is because when we talk about content creation nowadays, streaming and video gaming is pretty much synonymous. It just feels like, because whenever we're talking about content creation, a lot of time people younger than me, thank you, always come to me and say, when I say content creation, they're like, oh yeah, streamers. I'm like, no, not that. But
unless you're XQC on Twitch or Asmongold, but that's about it.
Oh wow.
Dr. Disrespect and Courage and Valkyrie and Tim the Tap Man on YouTube. Like, you can name the ones that are actually making a wealthy living on 2 hands. That's it.
And you didn't bring up Ninja. Or am I old? Did he like quit? Is he like, never mind. Regardless, they go through this like weird cycle of, hey, a new game came out. I'm going to study it. I'm going to learn it so that I know everything about this. I'm going to create a walkthrough script, quote unquote, using air quotes. And then they record it and try to do things live to show that they're doing all of these things, which is insane. The amount of work and preparation that they do for a video game is insane. But guess what? In 4 months, or maybe even not even 4 months, maybe like 3 weeks, they have to do the same thing on a completely different game. And so what people always think about when they think about content creation is they go, oh, I could be a streamer. I'm going to do Warzone or whatever game they want to play. And they're going to just like record it. And then they go out, balls out, like, refinance their house, or I don't know what they're doing, but they're just like buying like the most insane stuff.
Yeah.
Because they found a YouTube video. There you go, Nick. I'll toss you a bone. They found a YouTube video that says, this is what you need to start streaming. And they think that this is what they absolutely have to do. And they drop, $3,000, $4,000. And then they get started. And guess what? They found out they hate it. It sucks the joy out of doing what they're doing. And then they just like walk away from it. And
because they're not instantly successful. And
yeah,
there's no participation trophy. I'm sorry.
Which comes back to your point of, what do you want to do with the thing you're doing? Do you want to have all the clicks? Do you want to help people? Do you want to be extremely popular and make this your living? It's what do you want to do? And if they haven't had that discussion first, they're going to be in for a bad time.
Yeah. And you said something a little bit ago, Nathan, about how gaming and streaming are synonymous. I mean, maybe, but don't sleep on the fact that there are ladies out there on Instagram making $1 million a year trying on outfits on stories. There are brands that exclusively work with some of these people with hundreds of thousands or millions of followers just because of the Instagram following they've built. Do you know how long it takes them, or it took them, to get to the point where someone would be so it ain't just gaming and streaming. TikTok has changed the world, right? I spent all weekend watching football and TikTok because I was exhausted. It was a long week last week, but I don't know how many TikTok videos I watched over the weekend. And it's made me completely rethink my own content funnel strategy, where it's the ultimate end game is that you land on my long form content. That is the hub of everything. And then whether it's through affiliates or through products I'm promoting, whether that's NetApp or other stuff, things that I love, or sponsorships or partnerships or any of that kind of stuff, like landing on my long form. How do I get you to where I want you to be? Shorts, TikTok, social media posts, blog posts. It's ClickFunnels stuff at the end of the day. So you can't just open up OBS, click start streaming to your Twitch channel and play Fortnite and just think, where's my bag? Right? Where's all this money's going to start rolling in? It's not how it works. There has to be a business plan. Have you created an LLC to protect yourself and liabilities against anything that you're going to put up on the internet publicly?
Oh, sir.
Do you own your own name?
Have you talked to your legal department at your company that pays you a probably healthy salary and made sure that it was clear that you got on and talked about? And if so, that they gave you their express consent and a disclaimer to include in all your video. This isn't just about making videos. This isn't just about streaming. It's so much deeper, that 90% of the time that I spend is not recording. 90% of the time that I spend is writing scripts, coordinating with post-production with the editor, uploading to YouTube, SEO research, tagging it properly, thumbnail creation. Nobody talks about this kind of. So it's what you see. It's the iceberg metaphor, right? It's what you see above the surface is XQC getting 60,000 viewers because he's watching MasterChef on Twitch. What you don't, and I'm using him as an example. It's a terrible example because all he does is turn on Twitch. He doesn't really do anything else. But if you look at someone like who is a full-time YouTube creator, the things that you see in their video are just the tip of the iceberg sticking up out of the water, not the giant behemoth of stuff that goes on around it under the water. That's
funny you say that, Nick, because we had Dan from Gears and Gadgets on YouTube on a while back talking about content creation. And during that episode, one of the things we talked about is there's another moto vlogger that he and I both know of that decided she was going to quit her full-time job and go 100% YouTube after only a short period of time doing YouTube videos. And then one day, I don't know, for whatever reason, her views on her video wasn't as high as she expected. And turns out there's maybe an algorithm change in YouTube or something. She got on her Instagram page and started crying in front of all her fans. You don't like me anymore? And I'm not saying her name on purpose, but Dan commented the fact that he's been doing YouTube videos for his focus of content, motorcycles, trucks, all that kind of stuff, for 5 or 6 years, and has not hit the numbers that she's complaining about that she lost in a week or a day or whatever it was. So I don't want to scare away any of our listeners. And I wanted to jump in here and say that because we've been talking about a lot of things. It's like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, there's a lot of time spent that you don't see. And there may be a large gap in content release for whomever you're watching or listening to, whatever. There may be a period of time where you don't see content. It doesn't mean that they're not generating content. It doesn't mean that they have lost interest or moved away. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you just don't have any clue about. And that's why I was just using for ITR, for example, when it was just audio, I could crank out an episode in a Thursday evening and get it released. But when it comes, as soon as we start adding video, it's like it's taking me way longer, and I still haven't gotten the first episode of the year out. So,
and to circle back on my original point that you haven't answered yet is time of content. I want to get to both of those, honestly. Let me address his real quick, and then we'll get to the timing thing because I think I'm going to answer them. I just don't want to forget about that because I think a lot of people have that issue.
So Vinny, going back to your original point of trying to get from audio only into video, we were talking about that a few minutes ago, right? The best example I can give you is the experience that I have with Busted Wide Open, my former pro wrestling show. We started that as two guys sitting across a desk in my apartment in Los Angeles talking about wrestling. And my only experience at that point was podcasting. And then it was in about 2018 timeframe. That summer I was like, I've really been wanting to get into live streaming, and I had been tinkering with like live streaming some of my Diablo play and things like that. Nathan, what you were talking about, I'm gonna be famous. I'm really good at Diablo. I'm gonna go do this kind of stuff. I'm gonna live stream it. Yeah, I was lucky if there was one viewer, right? So the point is that I figured out with Busted Wide Open how to make it work for me and how to make my workflow easier. First and foremost, you're going to have to accept the fact it's live, baby. There's no editing. There's no editing. What that forces you to do, because editing is a cop-out, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. You get a pass if you mess up. Oh, we'll edit that out. What a rule of no editing forces you to do is to be on, to be prepared, to have your show notes, to have your rhythm with your guests, and just everybody goes in knowing there's no editing. Now, there's nothing stopping you from taking that, stripping the audio off it, snipping the ends off of it, and throwing it up onto a podcast feed. Maybe behind a gated paywall, if you want to, which was kind of the model that we did for Busted Wide Open. We would live stream it for free to everybody. But if you couldn't make the live stream, there was the YouTube VOD, or if you wanted, you could throw $5 in Patreon and get access to the special private RSS feed. It was just a model that we had built around it. But the number one core thing, this was the lesson I learned: no editing. You have to adopt a rule of no editing. And it just is what it is, because it will make you a better show. It will make you a more fun, engaged, prepared show. Imagine if Anderson Cooper was sitting at the CNN desk and just live breaking news. Oh, I screwed that up. We'll edit that out, right? Yeah. No. Just to give an example, right? It makes you more on when you're doing it that way. Nobody's ever going to see that on podcasting. They'll see it on video, but it also breeds some authenticity, right?
Well,
one sec. To Richard's point about timing, I mean, if it's 2 hours of entertainment, it's entertaining, I'm not going to stop watching if it's something I care about. And if I'm watching and I care about the content and I like the people and I'm hanging out with them, like, I don't know how many shows across the board are multi-hour shows. There's been a bit of a renaissance in long-form content on YouTube, on podcasting. There's podcasts that go 2 to 3 hours daily. Don't be scared of a time frame that you heard a marketing intern say one time because she thinks her person on YouTube saw a video once that said all things have to be under a certain time period. That's all crap. It's all crap. None of it matters. If your audience cares, they'll stick around. Busted Wide Open was a twice weekly 2-hour show. We would even do special hour to 2 hour things, and dozens of people would show up. Thousands of people would listen to the audio.
Yeah, I've hit that too, where it's like I don't even pay attention to the videos that I watch anymore and how long they're. If I'm entertained, I stick. But it seems to for the co-host behind the scenes of this podcast, we were like, let's do a 40-minute podcast, and we keep trying to stick to that, and we never hit it ever.
But why though?
Because we keep talking, and it's so good, and we're in chat.
No, I mean, where's the magic 40 minutes come from? Some arbitrary number
let's do 40 minutes. Unless Vince has
the 40-minute mark was a pre-COVID life idea. So originally the idea was we'd create these podcasts, and we figured out, and we thought, and we were told, or I was told rather, that people typically listen to podcasts while they commute. The average commute is about 45 minutes. So you want it to be under their commute time. Well, then COVID happened. People don't commute anymore. Well, many do, but a lot don't.
But not for the audience of this podcast.
Yeah.
Probably.
It took me about my previous house. I don't have a big lawn anymore. It took me about 4 to 5 hours on a Saturday once a month, twice a month sometimes, to do the full lawn, like mow the front, mow the back, trim the bushes, weed the all of that. Like I have Overcast. I'm a big Overcast app fan. Shout out to Marco. But I love that I can queue up my episodes, and just like a blog reader, Nathan, they just play one after the other, and you can just read, you can just listen, right? So I don't really need, it works the same way as blogs from a technology perspective. It's all RSS behind the scenes. But I can spend 4 to 6 hours. And let's take COVID out of the context. I'm still going to be working in the yard. I'm still going to mow the grass. I'm still going to do all that on a Saturday, whether I'm commuting to work on Monday or not. So what I'm trying to tell everybody, throw out all the arbitrary rule books that you think you heard, because none of that stuff matters. Make good content, figure out what you want to do with it, or what you want it to be in the end, and then make good content with it. It has taken me 3 years to figure out what kind of YouTuber and streamer I wanted to be. And ultimately, at the end, it was just bracing my authentic self. That's the fun irony of this whole thing. People think that when you make YouTube videos, you have to be something that you're not. You have, and it breeds this sense of imposter syndrome, and I'm not good enough, or I don't have this thing, and all the fun, ironic circle is I'm just me. I'm just Nick. I'm just Data Center Dude. I like geeky shit. I'm a hardware nerd. Look at these cabinets behind me. The only one of them's got stuff in it right now. I can't wait till a year from now when I'm having to get a third cabinet, because I've got so much gear. Because I love it's one of those things where I just absolutely know who you are, be confident in who you are, and trust that it doesn't matter. There's going to be people that don't like you for whatever reason, but just go be you. Go build your community of people that know you and love your content.
You heard it first here, folks. We are no longer shooting for 40 minutes.
There you go.
No,
if you guys need help going live, you know where to come. Reach out. I'm happy.
Are we
going
to stream? That up. What game are we going to do? We're going to do Warzone. We're going to do Polly Pocket. What are we doing? You want to do Sims? I do Sims.
Some of us have little kiddos that need to go to bed. So, Nick, if you're good, we'll keep going. Nathan, any final words?
I did want to bring up one final thing. And this just goes back to, everything that you just said about if you want to get started, know your content, know who you are, know thyself, and then just get started. In terms of kind of explaining a small podcast that was able to do this, Tech Breakfast was just like 3 different guys like, hey, let's just do a podcast. And, I'm kind of like, I'm not really giving them the full exploit of all of the great things that they have done. And they definitely have, and they can definitely come on this show and tell me, hey, Nathan, you're completely wrong about everything and how awesome we are. But, let's bring up guests and let's have them talk to us about, tech stuff. Like, okay, well, what are the guests going to talk about? I don't know. Make them bring topics to talk about, and then we'll try to talk about those topics. And we're just like, and that's really interesting that we'll bring that solution. Okay, that's interesting. Well, what are we going to do? How are we going to edit it? We are not going to edit it because I don't have the time to edit it. We're just going to record it, and I'm immediately going to release it. We're going to record it at 8. It releases at 10. And that's like one of the most amazing things I've ever been a part of in terms of content creation, because it just made me realize it is not everything that you think it has to be. It can be something just that simple. And I think, as I go to hug my sweet little girls and tell them that they can be better, grow up and be something, it's something that I would want to share. Like there are successful stories like that where you don't have to spend 3 hours of editing and all of these different things. You can do it in a 30-minute, recording, and then just send it out into the world.
And it's decisions, it's priorities is what it comes down to, right? It's the things that, like, I had to decide that this was important enough to me to forsake about $500 a month, right? You have to go through those kind of budgetary things to be able to sort through it. And it's not just about gear. It's time. Time is the most important thing and the most valuable resource you have. I don't have enough free time, and I don't even have kids. We got 2 4-legged kids, but that's another story. so the little amount of time, much less my day job at NetApp, the little amount of time that I have is better spent in certain ways. And I've had to take a harsh machete chop to a lot of the things, including my wrestling show, including Orbital Jigsaw, including my live stream that I've now cut down to maybe one day a week if they're lucky. If I'm lucky, I should say. All of that stuff are tactical decisions that I had to make in order to do what I really want to set out and accomplish, which is a video per week this year. And if it gets really good a year from now, maybe we get to the point where I can do multiple videos a week, if there's enough budget and things like that. But at the end of the day, do what you're comfortable with, spend what you're comfortable with. Just know that there are a dozen people out there at the same time looking to solve the same problem that you likely are, with wanting to get in. How do I make a better TikTok? Ooh, how do I do stories on Instagram? How do I make a YouTube short? How do I make a long form video? How do I tag it? Like there are YouTube videos out there on every single thing that I just rattled off. And that's the lesson. Somebody out there has been through what you're worried about. I promise you. There are literally videos and write-ups and everything out there that you could possibly want to cover or possibly be concerned about. Go get comfortable. Just figure it out. And it's not as hard as it looks.
I am so happy that you said some of that shit, because that's some of the stuff I have stumbled and focused and struggled with for ITR. Like, it bugs me that it's taken me as long as it has just to edit what I have edited of the first episode of this year. But I have accepted that it's taken me that long because prior to editing that video, I've never edited a video before. I opened up YouTube and found 4 Final Cut Pro courses, multi-hour-long courses, and I just started watching through them. And after about 1.5 of them, I said, all right, purchase. Bought the software. It's on my machine. We recorded an episode, and I'm editing that episode. We had a hurdle.
You will never have to spend that money ever again, by the way. Final Cut Pro X is one of the smartest investments any content creator can make. You can edit your short form content with it, your long form. You can even edit audio with it if you want to. And I have owned Final Cut Pro X since 2012, I want to say, and I paid it once, and I've never had to pay another dime for it. All the upgrades come with it. So if you're thinking about dancing around which one you want to get, that's my top recommendation. If you're on Mac, if you're on Windows, DaVinci Resolve.
Yeah. So
for what Vince is leading into about, hey, I want to do this content creation thing, and what Nick is talking about, hey, this is a time sink if you really want to do it. My time is different than everybody else's time, just like everybody else's time is different than mine. I have found out that I don't want to edit. I don't want to do the long hours that the other 2 people on this podcast are doing at the moment. But I have been very lucky to be invited as a guest co-host. And I went, I can do that. I'm really good at color commentary. I've got a lot of experience I can share. And that's what got me into public speaking in the first place. And I miss it due to COVID, but this has filled that gap. And if I can help one person with one problem, I'm happy with the presentation and the material that I've put together. That's what I am good at, and that's what I like. And helping this podcast move along, I went, I need a better mic. I need a better stand. I need better lighting. I need better software. And I did the same thing. I said, Black Friday purchase, $1,000. Done. And my work life has improved. My home podcasting stuff has improved. My telephone calls to my family have improved. Little stuff to me, but big stuff to me. And then the quality of this podcast has improved because you can now hear me better, instead of, if you go back a few episodes, I'm running off of a wireless headset going, hi, everybody, can you hear me? I don't think so. But that's what I chose to invest in, and it has been excellent. I didn't invest in software or editing or anything else because I know what my time schedule is like.
Yeah.
But I figured that out. And I've got Vince, who has graciously invited me to this party that we have every few weeks.
Yeah, so I want to turn the conversation a little bit away from tech and gear and software and whatnot. And this is something I think, Nick, that you can speak to, and I'm sure Richard will have an opinion on it. But, season 1 and 2 of IT Reality, we tried hard to hit 1 episode every week. We got close. What got in the way was honestly all of the other work that went on behind the scenes to make that happen. And
Such as?
part of it was editing. Part of it was show notes. Part of it was securing guests, talking to people, saying, "Hey, Nick, would you like to come be on the show?" And I'll stop there at making a list. But my
scheduling,
schedule wrangling, yes,
scrangling.
Yep.
I'm going to use that, scrangling. It's all the other things that got in the way. That I was only one person. The first 2 seasons. At first, it was myself, and then I'd bring in temporary co-hosts. Second season, Nathan came on board, and later on in that second season, Richard came on board, and now we've got 3 people that can talk to a topic on a given episode, plus a guest or 2, whatever it happens to be. But it also means that I don't have to focus as much on 1 or 2 aspects. For example, I know Nathan has a different IT experience than Richard or I, because he's been doing it a shorter period of time. Richard has had a different IT experience than I have. You've had a different IT. So I don't have to worry about necessarily writing the whole outline of the show. For the most part, I can say, hey guys, this is what I think I want to talk about for this episode, and just kind of light the fire and just let it go. And then on the backside, I can focus on the other things. So I can focus on actually editing the content. I can focus on getting it uploaded. But Richard can contribute when he has time in his way. Same thing for Nathan. And then in your case, as the guest of the hour, so to speak, you get to just focus on being you and just talking about whatever the topic happens to be. So in this case, it's the content creation game. But that grind, becoming okay with the fact that we are not going to hit 1 episode every week this year. It's not going to happen. In trying to add all these other things to it, we're not going to hit it. But we're going to do as many as we can, and that's going to be okay. And that's something my brain has been struggling with a bunch. But it's just going to have to be what it is, because we want to focus on adding in an additional aspect, which is the video aspect. In order to do that, we're going to have to give something up, which is hitting 1 every week.
What? No, that actually makes it easier. Takes the burden of editing off of you.
Say what?
Going live takes the burden of editing off of your plate. But what it does do is it makes you be more prepared. So you got to start thinking about it in advance. Listen, I'm a terrible example because I'm a monster.
He says as we use him as an example.
I am a monster, and I mean that because I was working a full-time job, 8 to 10-hour days, sometimes 12-hour days throughout the pandemic, sometimes 6 days a week, sometimes traveling, moved across the country twice in the last 4 years now. Not just over 3 years. But I will tell you that when Esther and I moved from LA to North Carolina in 2018, I was hauling my Scarlett or Focusrite Claret 8 Pre and my laptop to the office at midnight to record my podcast for wrestling and edit it there while I was there so I could upload it. In the final months of Busted Wide Open, I was working the full-time job in 2021. We had shut down Orbital Jigsaw, but I was doing a 2-hour show on Tuesday nights starting at 8 o'clock, and I was doing a 2-hour show on Friday night starting at 10 o'clock. And then I would edit and post all of it after the fact, create thumbnails for it, post. I'm a monster. I don't need sleep. I don't know how that's possible. I don't expect everybody else to be able to do that. But you have to have some kind of drive. And I'm not going to give you some cliche crap like pull up your bootstraps or man up or any of that bull crap. That's, you either want to be like that or you don't. I thrive in that kind of environment. I set ridiculous expectations on myself. So I was able to pull double duty. Did it make my household comfortable to live in? Hell no. Were there serious, stern conversations about the little amount of time that we spent together? Yes. You're going to have to go through some of these things as you evolve as a creator. If you just want to write blog posts, fantastic. Write your blog posts. if you want to get into new media content creation, podcasting, short form TikToks or shorts, long form videos, live streaming, there is a time and effort commitment that you haven't seen yet. You haven't felt yet. Let me know when it's 2:30 in the morning and you're still editing. Let me know when you have a video that's going live in an hour and you still haven't made a thumbnail for it yet. There are different things that come about throughout this whole journey that I've been on. Let me know when you're up at 4 a.m. overhauling your Discord community because they don't like the way that the channels are laid out. That's the kind of stuff that nobody thinks about. It's the iceberg again. It's the tip of the iceberg. Everybody watches the 5 or 10 minute YouTube video and it sucks, thumb down. You know, that's the stuff that I don't really pay a lot of attention to. I pay attention to when people watch it during the day. I pay attention to how long they watch it for. Are they subscribed or not? How did they get here? Did it come from recommended videos or was it from my LinkedIn post? That's the stuff to care about.
All those analytics can kill you. You can get lost in the analytics.
Yeah, but you got to pick the analytics that you want, though. Just like you said, you got to
key metrics.
I used to
because
do that.
You're viewing them as judgmental.
Yes,
they're not. Data doesn't have an opinion, man. Data is data.
Data's
so
insulting
take the data
sometimes.
at face value for exactly what it is. The
Commander
beauty of YouTube's deep analytics is that they are uber powerful. And they allow you to shape kind of you can build and you can go down this rabbit hole of, oh, that came in from my LinkedIn post, but I see that it's spread out between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. Ooh, I should change when I publish my videos because this is when more people are online watching videos.
Remember,
it ain't about whether or not people like your content, guys. Right? What'd you say, Richard?
I said, remember, as he says that he posts at midnight.
When did I post them at midnight?
You post them at all the super weird hours.
Oh, so the first couple of ones in January?
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. That was like late Friday night. I had 3 different editors. I was editing that one myself, and it was sucked, and I hated it. And at a certain point, my final golden rule that I'm going to leave you guys with today, 80%. Good enough is good enough. In the beginning, quantity is greater than quality. Consistent cadence and quantity is greater than quality. So I don't care if you record a 3-hour podcast and you don't edit it at all, slap your bookends and your intros, outros on it, and ship it out the door. Unless there is something mechanically broken, like my internet drop that we had during this show today. Fix that, sure. Don't go through and meticulously take out ums and silences and ahs and all of that stuff. Leave it up. Move on. Because what happens when you remove that 3 to 5 hour burden of editing from you? You have time to prepare for the next one. You have time to think about what you want your next episode to be. You can send 20 more emails to potential guests to get them scheduled. When your priorities shift away and your audience is either going to like it or not, they're not going to not listen because you didn't edit the show down to 40 minutes. They're either going to listen or they're not. They like what you put out or they don't. The time doesn't matter because beauty podcast, you can pick up where you left off. If you have YouTube videos now, they even save your chapters with cookies and you pick back up where you left. You change your device from mobile to your browser. They'll keep watching to come back. Short form content, I think, could potentially be the one that changes things in a very big way. I'm now seeing a lot of large creators like Logan Paul and other people like that intentionally creating 5 minute or less videos because of the short form generation, the TikTok and YouTube Shorts generation happening. It's Vine all over again.
You hear that, Richard? We got to come up with...
I miss Vine. Yeah, I miss Vine. Yeah, I miss Vine because Vine was awesome. And nobody knew the power of it until it was gone.
Well, they had a terrible business plan. That's really what happened.
Yeah.
They bet on like 5 big whales, and then they all went to live streaming, and they're like, well, now what do we do? Oh, we're dead.
Yep.
So TikTok is not going to make that same mistake again, guys. TikTok's going to be here for the long haul. I initially thought, oh, great, another Vine. It'll be here and gone in 3 years. Nobody will ever, we'll be on to the next thing.
No,
I have been paying very close attention to the back end of TikTok. It is brilliant. The algorithm is unique. The way that it does discovery and the way that you can tag things, the whole For You page concept, brilliant. Very, very closely related to YouTube's recommendation algorithm mechanics that are going on. TikTok's going to be here for a minute. YouTube Shorts still got some kinks to work out, but YouTube's always working kinks out.
Would you put TikTok and Instagram Reels in the same bucket?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Facebook and Instagram Reels are the equivalent of that. And basically what you're just doing is critical mass there. Because you've got, what, 5 billion, however many billions of users you've got on Facebook that, you know, somebody could randomly come across it. And this goes back to the whole thing about the funnel. If you want to be a TikTok creator, that's all you're ever going to create is 15, 30, or 3-minute videos. That's all you're ever going to do. And you're going to spend the bulk of your time editing those on your phone, making them cool, putting nice little graphics over the top. That is all you're ever going to do. And the reason it is blown up is because everybody's got one of these. Everybody's got a phone. There is no special software you need. There is no skills really required. It's what you can do it right there in about 10 minutes. And I've watched people make the videos and not even edit them, and they just post them and they get millions of views. The whole point of shorts, in my opinion, is to drive people to the thing that you want them to see. If that's TikTok and short form content, fantastic. You landed them already. But if you're trying to drive them to a product or a long form piece of content, like a podcast, a blog, or a YouTube video, or ultimately a live stream, I'm going to create short form content that drives people to my long form content. And then I want to hang out on live stream and talk to them about what I talked about in the long form videos. That's kind of the flow to think about this. And that's the goal I'm honestly working towards this year. I definitely want, right now, I feel like I'm just getting a handle on the long form stuff on YouTube. There's a rhythm to it once you get into this rotation. But the next step for me is taking some of that, fashioning it into, for lack of a better word, highlight reels of the long form content that can go up on the short form stuff, not because that's where people will discover your channel. And YouTube is implementing some new stuff with their premieres where you can jump straight into a live stream after, and it'll take everybody that watches it with you. You do a premiere, the video ends, and everybody that's in your chat immediately jumps over to a live stream with you on camera going, "Hey guys, do you like the video? That was awesome. What'd you think? Let me know." That kind of stuff is going to be magical over the course of the next year. I think about it for events. I think about it for any kind of big product launches. That's the kind of stuff I want to do. Meanwhile, marketing organizations are still writing blogs and tweeting. And if you're working for a big company and a brand, you probably just went, "Holy shit," because you have no idea what is actually going on out there. You're writing blog posts and you're paying a ton of money to get your placement on Google search results, just like it's 2011 all over again. So I'm sorry for the big long diatribe and the rant. I wanted to get that one out. 80% focus on you and what you want out of whatever thing you're doing, and the eyes will come. It's not going to come on the first video in the first episode or the first 20 videos of the first episode.
Or the first,
but it'll
80.
come.
All right, let's wrap this up. Richard, last question. Anything you got?
I'm just digesting everything, but come join me on Twitter at Richard Kenyan. Come join us, Nick and I and Vince, in Orbital Jigsaw's Discord server if he wants to shout that URL out for everybody. If you want to learn about content creation, it's a great way to hang out with some enterprise tech people. It's really allowed me to do what I'm doing right now. And thank you, Nick, for that.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Nick,
I'm happy to have you guys in there.
Nick, plug yourself.
Oh, at DataCenterDude on Twitter, DataCenterDude.com. You can find all my links to all my other stuff there on the website. I don't really do much on Twitch anymore, but we'll see how that goes throughout the year.
Evil finger.
But YouTube has become my new hub of all things. I'm going to be doing all my things on YouTube this year.
Yep, and if we can figure out our video issues from tonight, we'll end up right there alongside you. But
nice.
For those listening, catch you next time.
Bye, guys.
This has been another great episode of IT Reality.
We are everywhere, so pick your podcast app. You can also find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter.